Today is Wednesday, and that means it's time for this week's market update. It's also the first Wednesday in April, which means I have all of March's numbers ready to show you. And as always, all of this data is pulled directly from the Northwest MLS, and I will be screen sharing from their InfoSparks portal. Here we have Whatcom County residential as a whole. We are looking at median sales prices, and we've got a 3-year historical context here on this graph. This is zooming in to the last year, and here we can see a rise from January of this year when the median closed residential sales price was $550,000, the jump up to $600,000 in February, and then another jump of $35,000 to our new median closed price in March of 2022 at $635,000. Let's check our new listings. As we expected, inventory was up in March versus February. 323 new listings came on the market in March versus 224, so just shy of 100 new listings. And that's about a 50% increase too, versus the number of new listings that came on last month. Closed sales, no surprise, also up in March from February. This is our active time on the market. March through May sees a lot of activity and a lot of new listings, which will then hopefully continue through the summer as well. Days on market is a fun one. We went up for a little bit for December and January and have dropped back down to 5. Honestly, I don't ever anticipate seeing median days on market less than 5, and here's why. It's very popular to list on Thursday or Friday and have an offer review date scheduled for Monday or Tuesday. It just makes sense. There are, of course, homes that sell in a day or two, but if a home takes 4 or 5 days to sell, it does not mean it was less attractive. It often means it was even more attractive. Because the listing agents wisely are counseling sellers to let the home stay on the market for a couple more days so that people can do pre-inspections and then waive their inspections, or simply to allow for a good, healthy number of showings to come in so you have a good, healthy number of offers to review at that offer review date. So that's why I don't ever see it really dropping below 5. And again, that's the median, which means half of those closed homes took 5 or fewer days, and then half of those closed homes took longer to go under contract. So that's Whatcom County as a whole. Now let's jump over to some city views here. Of course, we're going to have Bellingham, Ferndale, Linden, and Blaine. You can see our color coding across the top here, so you can kind of reference which of these jagged numbers or jagged lines is the city that you might be the most interested in. And as always, if you're looking for specific data on any area, neighborhood, or type of property, please reach out because we're happy to provide some personalized information for your specific situation. That is literally our job, and that is what we're here to do. The weekly market update is just a flyover on a very, very general and broad level. So here again, we have our median closed prices for the last 3 years. I'm going to zoom us into 1 year, and we see a little bit up in Bellingham, but roughly level, and then up in all of the other areas or these other municipalities in our county. Days on market was a fun one to take a look at. It's not fun because of the reality, but the shape of the lines is what's fun because we have to find humor where we can. We thought we saw an easing up over the winter, and boom, it's tight again. So we're now down to that 5 to 7 day median days on market in these core markets in our county. And like I said, the median for Whatcom County was 5, meaning that of all the houses altogether, that median is 5, and then we're just seeing a little bit of spread in each of the individual towns involved. New listings. We saw, as always, Bellingham is our biggest and most active market, and we saw a surge of new listings, 140, just shy of 140 in March versus just 84 in February. So a good number of new listings coming into the market. Is it enough for the buyer demand? No. But is it a positive thing? Yes. And then roughly even on most of the other markets, Linden went up from 26 to 39, so a good percentage rate increase as far as the number of new listings, but not a huge number as far as just number of homes on the market. Days on market we already covered. Let's take a look at closed sales. And it's to be expected that as new listings went up in February and early March, we saw a high number of closings. And so Bellingham, for example, 100 closings in March versus 61 in February. That sales price is what says something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on pretty closely as we head further into the spring. This increase in Ferndale was not something I expected. It went up from 678 to just a shy of 720. Linden went up as well. Linden's following the Ferndale market shape right in here versus for the change, and so is Blaine. So um, speculating here a little bit, Bellingham leveling off doesn't mean Bellingham's becoming less popular. It could just mean that Bellingham is reaching a possible pricing cap again as a whole. It doesn't mean that for any specific house. Versus as Bellingham becomes capped out or maxed out on what people can afford who are moving into this area, they're likely to continue looking in Ferndale, Linden, and Blaine as possible other options. And $700,000 or $800,000 goes a lot further in Linden than it does in Bellingham. Again, just speaking in very broad generalities here. And so it makes sense to me that if someone is moving into this area and wants to live in Bellingham, but they get beat out on some different offers, they might look to Linden or look to Ferndale, at least for the next few years, to get into a house, get a house with a view, maybe a little bit more space. They actually win an offer after a couple of tries, and then now they're building equity in another attractive area in our county. That is speculation, but it goes along with the anecdotal evidence that we're seeing. And so I always recommend also tuning into our dispatches series as we have that, or reaching out to your broker to get a sense of what it is that they are seeing in the market right now. The market is changing very quickly. Leo and I were just talking about it this morning with some indicators that we're seeing where the data lags behind the realities of the market. And so that's where we feel strongly that it's so important that if you're interested in buying or selling in the next 6 to 12 months, that you're in fairly regular communication with both your loan officer and your real estate professional, because they are going to have a pulse on the market in a very visceral way that the Redfin and Zillow data just doesn't, because of the lag time that comes into even getting this data for the market updates, right? I'm looking at March's data, and we're now a week into April. So some of the realities have already changed slightly, and no individual person's perspective is perfect, but it'll add some nuance and add some texture to what it is that we're seeing in these numbers from the numbers that we have available. And that, my friends, was this week's market update, and I will see you next time.